actually not even Friday. Well, wait, if we wait 30 seconds, it's going to be Saturday, August 21st. We're doing kind of our fireside chat podcast today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my esteemed co-host who's on location in the northern part of New England, in a remote location on vacation. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Frary.
Indeed, I am. Thank you, Kevin. Welcome, everybody, to the Prove It Live podcast special edition. I'm Mike Frary from the Farm Baseball Performance Institute, not alongside our producer, Hugh. He is absent for this particular episode. And this is going to be a different type of episode. We're not going to have our segments. We're just going to sort of spitball and chat about some things that have come up recently. I am in the northern region of northern part of New England. I'm actually up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire and the North Conway area. So, and it's been a lot of fun up here.
And I'm on my home studio with cool lights that my kids like.
Very cool lights. Very good. Every once in a while, one drifts in front of your forehead. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, no, that's a UFO.
Is that what that is? Or a sniper rifle?
My forehead is big enough to put UFO. So, Mike, we had a couple of, I guess our top of the order here. We had a couple of comments came through our Facebook page, our YouTube page.
Interwebs.
Yeah. So, what we had talked last time, we were talking about Mike Trout, and there was a couple of comments on Mike Trout. And one of the comments I think I had talked about was back in the day that Jerry Rice, we were talking about how long Mike Trout has been out for ever.
For the calf.
Yeah. And, I remember as a kid that Jerry Rice had torn his ACL and had come back to play. And a listener wrote in and said, yes, he did. He came back at 14 weeks. But then later regretted it because I believe he fractured his patella in the same knee. I do not think that would happen today because back then the surgery, they would take your patella tendon, where they would kind of take the middle third and they take kind of like two pieces of cork, one on each end, and put that in. But now with the ability to use a cadaver ligament, the chance of patella fractures is much more diminished. But no one's coming back in the NFL after 14 weeks for an ACL surgery. That's insane. That's insane by one of the greatest football players to ever walk the face of the earth.
Yeah, it kind of begs the question too. Like how much of what we're talking about when we talk about, a guy like Trout taking so long to come back, guys taking forever. Chris Sale just came back for the Red Sox after what I said it was like
just a little over 2 years.
Yeah, it was 700 something days, right? So it was a long time. How much of it is, when I try to give them the benefit of the doubt, which I honestly do, I'm honestly putting this out there because I don't know, look, they have large investments in these guys. So they want to make sure that they're right, that they're 100% so that they don't come back and then swiftly go back on the DL for an extended period of time. Again, I get that. How much of it is that versus, toughness? I think that's the part that we sort of question is like, being able to come back, being able to put the work in, really wanting it. How incentivized are you when, you're still getting your, $18 million weekly check or whatever it is, right? How incentivized are you, to come back? So I think that's a real question. I think if you're being honest, you have to ask that question, right? And, Jerry Rice wasn't from the same generation, Kev, but that, guys that play, Joe DiMaggio and Mickey Mantle and Stan Musial and Williams and those guys. I mean, those guys had part-time jobs. They worked in the off season,
and they played hurt a ton of time, but we can look at Trout a few different ways. Number one, he's on one of the most underperforming baseball teams, considering he's how many MVPs he won? 2, 3, which I still understand the MVP in the last place team, take him out. They still suck, but
they're still last place, right?
Is he, and this, I was the conspiracy theorist in me, is he taking a back seat for the Shohei Ohtani show? Is he sitting back for this guy who's having an incredible year on the mound and an unbelievable year at the plate that he's the show? I don't know, but it seems a very long time for this calf strain. Now, you had brought up kind of a controversial subject.
Ooh.
That Mr. Trout who has a known, I believe, thyroid condition or doesn't have a thyroid,
We'll say alleged because apparently there's lots of information out there.
alleged. Yeah. So you made a comment that, he might be using HGH as part of a prescription so that his, all his hormone levels are normal. And that, for those who don't know, when you're on human growth hormone or steroids, basically what that doesn't just make you, jacked. What it does is it speeds up your healing. And, you always feel like it's April 15th every time rather than the dog days of August and September.
Right.
So someone asked, is this true? And, are they prescribing it? And how common is this prescribed? And, that kind of certainly went over my pay grade, but you did a little digging. You did find so tell us what you found out.
All right. So first of all, I found out, where this came from or where it became sort of publicized, I guess, was from Scott Brocious' son. His name's
Scott
David.
Supercalifragilistic XBLO.
XBLO Brocious, yes.
Oh, nice.
And so he wrote, I guess he tweeted or put something out. And this was around the time of like the whole sign stealing with Houston, et cetera.
Gotcha.
And the quote is, if you want to read something better, Mike Trout takes HGH for a thyroid condition, quote unquote. It's a loophole he found, and the MLB doesn't make it public because they don't want fans knowing their best player is on HGH. But people within know, ... Okay.
Now, did he retract that, or what happened with that?
So he ended up retracting it. Okay. And
like cancel culture retraction, or what do you think that was about?
Sounds kind of cancel. The way is loosely and casually as he posted that this was his retraction. The example I used of Mike Trout does not stem from information from my dad or sources within MLB and has no evidence behind it. I had no intention of this becoming an accusation against Mike Trout or causing the uproar it did, end quote. So, draw whatever, Trevor Bauer also had chimed in on it. Or at least was a part of it, I should say. So, and I'm trying to find out which this is Daniel Roberts. So it says, but the issue intensified Friday morning when Yahoo Finance reporter Daniel Roberts tweeted comments from a conversation he had with Cincinnati Reds pitcher at the time, Trevor Bauer, about the Astros scandal. Quote,
so that was last year, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. Quote, Trevor Bauer tells me Mike Trout has an exemption from the league for therapeutic HGH for thyroid issue, and that players know this and generally don't care. Roberts tweeted, quote, says there's a whole complicated process to qualify for such an exemption from MLB, end quote. Okay. So, and then of course, Bauer ended up, coming back and saying, no, I said, if is basically in paraphrasing, but he's like, no, I'm saying if he has this condition, he would have to go through this long process. Excuse me. So who knows? But it definitely raised question. It is in the baseball sort of community. In fact, I kind of threw it out there, perhaps irresponsibly. I don't know. I didn't mean it to be, but
it's out there, right?
It's out there. Yeah. Like, people sort of know about it in the baseball community. It's sort of a big deal. And I don't think, and as Bauer said, no one really cares. I mean, it's not like he's, trying to use it to cheat. It sounds like he has an actual condition that this is something that, if this is the case, I don't know. But my opinion would be that if he's taken it from what I see, it's, to something he's probably done his, probably even pre-baseball,
All right. Well, so I guess the debate continues.
Well, and let's not forget too, right? We have guys with exceptions for Adderall, right? I mean, I think that was in the same article.
So there's that. Now, Adderall, for those who don't know, is essentially used for attention deficit disorder. I do know some people who have used it, and basically they say, well, they're on it pitching. He described it was like throwing strikes into an ocean. That's how big the target looked. Like it just got them. It got them to focus. So I've never tried it, never used it, but obviously that would be, I guess, on the performance enhancing spectrum.
Absolutely. And so let me just chime in. So it continues on in this LA Times. This is from the LA Times, by the way, this article that I'm quoting from. Players, through their personal physicians, can seek to use substances on baseball's banned list, but they must be approved by baseball's doctors. The majority of therapeutic use exemptions have been made for drugs that address attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. If the independent program administrator of the joint drug program granted a therapeutic use exemption for HGH, he would be obligated to include it in his annual public report. Okay. It says, but an exemption of HGH has never been granted to any player since 2008, when data was first publicly disclosed after the release of the Mitchell report. But again, in there, they just sort of throw in that people are getting exemptions for Adderall. I mean, and absolutely, right. I mean, that's it's absolutely a performance enhancing drug. I mean, it helps people a lot. Look at, there's lots of guys that get to play high levels of baseball. And, when you get to a certain level, the fundamentals, the mechanics that we talk about all the time, they're there for the most part. Right. And sometimes what sets a player apart from another, or what makes one succeed versus another, is his ability to focus and lock in, right. And have that, that tunnel focus. Being a huge, David Ortiz fan, just from watching him play for a long time, he's sort of the guy that ended lots of games for your team.
Yeah, him.
That guy. And
by the way, did you see him in the Field of Dreams game? Guy's in like amazing shape now.
Yeah, he is.
Size. He looked great. Is. Good for him.
And just as a fan of baseball, obviously I'm a big Red Sox fan. Grew up, in Boston.
I mean, he's like.
But I'm just a baseball fan in general too, right? Especially when you do what I do and you start having players that go off to play in other organizations and you start rooting for more than people than laundry, as Seinfeld put it. But regardless, Ortiz was one of those guys that was known for being clutch. And, he had that ability to, when a lot of other people are, they let their nerves or anxiety get the better of them, he rose to the occasion in those. And that's just to point out that how important that focus is. And so, absolutely, if you have something that can do that for you artificially, that's an advantage without question.
Okay. So we had another comment. So a few weeks ago in our, I think we spent at least one, if not two podcasts on talking about that baseball needs a pitching avatar to compare and contrast mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sent an article. Apparently the A's, the Oakland A's, are always kind of ahead of the curve here with some of their stuff, have hired an astrophysicist who's a woman.
An astrophysicist?
Astrophysicist, yeah.
Astrophysicist.
Like
wow.
Astro, not just like a physicist, like the.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to know how that helps.
Of course, the physics, but she's doing, from a, vector, mathematical, breaking down their mechanics. Her name is Samantha Schultz. And then a recent article was done about her I'm trying to pull up the where it was here, but a local paper out there. And I got sent the article. It was a pretty good article. And I actually reached out to the author of the article and haven't heard back yet. But I'm going to try to reach out to Ms. Schultz, because it sounds, we always talk about how baseball not letting in, non-baseball people. Oh, it was the Mercury News, which is, I think, a Northern California publication. That there's a whole big article about her. So good for her. And good for them for essentially being outside the box.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm not sure how this translates. I mean, astrophysics to pitching. But perhaps it does. They think very, just sifting through the article.
Yeah, I think
they think very highly of her.
Like a comment, and give you, one of the best podcasts we've ever done is when you mathematically broke down hitting. I think that if you can put, a mathematical equation to pitching, or at least come up with some sort of common denominator, at least we're on our way to stopping injury, which is going to lead me into my next top of the order thing. So, besides, over swinging, or someone may dislocate their shoulder on a crazy swing, I'm sure the incidence of people being injured swinging a bat or fielding a ball, unless they slam into a wall, is very minimal, considering, comparatively to people pitching. Especially in the last 10 years. So when we talk about pitching mechanics, people can get hurt. It's a serious thing. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. So I belong to a site called Advanced Baseball Instruction. And
sounds fancy.
Very fancy. And it's on Facebook. So it's a public site. There's looks like there's over 20,000 members here. And, someone had posted up there that this, I don't know if you can see this kid throwing here, that this young man has elite, if we want to look at what elite mechanics are, it's this kid.
Right.
Now, immediately I've looked at now, of course, when we talk about this has nothing to do with this young man. Nothing. I wish this kid, for every pitch he throws, I hope it's $1 million every time he throws it. Okay. But when you're going to go on the web, and this will kind of, I guess, lead into what we're talking about today, and see that someone has something that's elite, and I see glaring issues, right? That's a problem, So I put kind of in my passive aggressive way, I put some, there were some glaring things of him, locking his knee out, and I did stuff. And immediately after putting something down
to the point of hyperextension, I should.
Oh yeah. There's everything we've talked about for, the arm lag, the shrug, and, you can see, boom, right. If you just look at that knee, it's like, no
really, bueno.
Yeah, no good. And I was called a Karen, which I guess that's not good in today's.
No, that's a COVID term.
That's a COVID term. So I don't want to be a Karen. So of course I said to the one of the guys who belongs to this site that, okay, let's not make fun of me here. Let's debate the issues. And I asked him about the screw home mechanism of the knee, the scapulothoracic rhythm that we talked about a couple weeks ago. Of course, I got crickets. But the good thing is other people chimed in, to ask about it. So, this kind of leads into, Mike, what pretty much when we've talked about this whole podcast to begin with is really dispelling information that we get from the internet.
Correct.
Some is good, some is bad.
Most is bad. Let's be honest. Most is bad.
Your wife belongs to a parent group. I'm in some parent groups. People are going to the internet for information. That's
correct.
What it's there for.
And now more than ever.
Especially during COVID, when that's all we.
That's right. And I think what happened was a lot of instructors, they for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, it's an obvious reason. I think that to stay connected with some of their clients, they started using the internet and started using social media more. And so, and I think there's a lot of people, especially that were uncomfortable with maybe going to do a lesson somewhere. And, it was a perfect match. But at the same time, it was like, what's the word? It's like, like the perfect problem at the same time, because
perfect storm of stuff.
That's it. The perfect storm. That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Ken. That's why you're here.
That was filmed in our, in Gloucester, I think.
It was Gloucester. So, like you said it, and I think you're being nice, but the reality is that it's far more bad information than it is good information, unfortunately. And I think, look, you don't have to have any years of experience training baseball players. You don't have to have a list of players that you sent off to play to college or anything like that, or even years of doing instruction with players to chime in on the internet, right? And you can claim you hear the word guru all the time. You hear expert. And the average parent, like I look at it as like, let's say it's my kid plays lacrosse, right? Which he does not, by the way. Let's say he does. I don't know the first thing, right? So if I go online, I start looking up, hey, how do I teach my kid to shoot, a lacrosse ball, whatever? How do I know the good from the bad? I don't know. So that's your average parent. They don't know. And, I think some people, it's bad. Some people actually taking advantage of this, right? There's some charlatans, and there's other people that maybe aren't just looking to take advantage, but look, it's everybody loves to get that like button hit for them, right? That's a proven thing now, right? That's right. It releases endorphins and et cetera, right? So people, just for that reason, that this to come across as someone who knows, whatever the reason, there's lots of information that's put out there as fact, that put out there as like, undisputed, excellent information. And it's just not, it's wrong. And now I have it on the baseball side. One thing, we'll talk about also is, this HLP, this thing that this guy claims every big league hitter does, not one does it. Okay, that one's glaring. That one's in your face, shows you everything.
People are going to argue with you, but yeah, I mean,
not many.
So why don't we kind of go through and from our perspective of how someone would get through the weeds and figure out what's good and what's bad, and maybe if we can kind of give some pointers on what to look for. Maybe go a little back and forth here.
Yes. Well, and the long-winded thing that I was trying to say is that good for you for jumping on there and interjecting, and good for the people who are on that thread who asked you questions, because otherwise they probably just see this and they might know, hey, this looks kind of weird, or it doesn't look all that healthy, but I'm not an expert. These guys must know. And then they just go away from it and say, oh, I guess that's the way to do it. So thankfully, you were there to interject, some reason, some science, which is great.
Cool. So let me give you some ground rules for people listening. I find in the 27 odd years I've been practicing, I find baseball is weird. Yeah. And what I mean by that is it seems that, and maybe football too. And I'll give you the example of our quarterback that used to play here, Tom Brady, and his trainer.
I think I say Drew Bledsoe.
Oh, well, it could be Drew Bledsoe too. So Guerrero, what's his first name?
Vladdy?
No, not that. His trainer there.
I forget. Eddie, right?
No, that's not it.
Everyday Eddie Guerrero? No.
Yeah. All right. But you look at someone like Tom Brady, who's played in the NFL for 3,250 years, right? And except again for someone rolling into the back of his knee in a freak play, he pretty much played that entire career uninjured, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That is like incredible. But yet Guerrero, his trainer, gets negative press, right?
He's a quack, right?
Right, he's a quack. Like, and I don't know what he does, but like everyone is criticizing what Brady does. Now, baseball, it's even worse. You'll have guys with a multitude. So in this exact discussion now, back at me was a whole, they're talking about dragging your toe when you pitch, which to me is like, if I'm going forward, in my car, I don't want to lower my bike rack so it drags. To me, that's friction, and that makes absolutely zero sense. Mm-hmm. So they sent out a whole collage of pitchers like, well, all the great ones do it. Okay.
Ergo, it must be the right thing to do. Right.
But I looked at that and said, Tommy John, shoulder, out of baseball, because that's how I look at it. Like, mm-hmm. So yeah, you might be the great for the 3 years that you were great for, like the Mark Pryor, who was, elite but you're out of baseball because you're injured. So to me, you want to have results that can, that I always say you work out for two reasons. One is to improve performance, and two is to stay healthy. And it seems like baseball, the people who have the most likes aren't getting those results.
Well, let me throw you.
I work with player X.
Right.
But didn't player X out of baseball at 31? Oh, yeah, but it doesn't matter. I work with player X. I mean, that's what kind of result is that?
Well, let me throw another thing at you, okay? So just because some elite level people are doing it doesn't necessarily mean it's the actual best thing to do. Number one, Barry Bonds, I take that back. JD Martinez, DJ LeMahieu have better swings than Babe Ruth. Are they better than Babe Ruth? Okay. So just because it's what they did doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing to do. And I get this a lot too. So, again, I throw up Michael Brantley, and I only throw him up there because we did a video of him, and he's easy to find a lot of good slow motion video. And I think he has as close to he's a really great example of an ideal swing.
He's a good avatar for you.
Good avatar. And there are others, but he's a great avatar. And And so then, you work on that hand path, and a kid might say, well, wait a minute, Mookie Betts doesn't do that. Mookie Betts kind of pulls off early. Yep, you're right. He does. But by the way, what's to say that if Mookie didn't extend, that he wouldn't be even better? Which, by the way, when you watch someone like Mookie Betts in the on-deck circle, what's he work on? Extending his hands. It's clearly something, I remember, Dustin Pedroia is another one that, used to have trouble with the high pitch. He had trouble keeping his hands above the ball. So what did he do in the on-deck circle? Watch his on-deck swings. You can find it on the internet. Right. The swings were all up here. He would swing at eye level and work on keeping his hands above the barrel. So just because they have, those could be minor flaws in their swings doesn't mean like they're 90% of what they do is amazing. It's amazing. Right. And, look, there's hitting coaches at the big league level. There's pitching coaches at the big league level. So they're not done working. They're not perfect. Right. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. So what's to say, right? That just right. So just because they all drag their foot or whatever doesn't mean that's what you necessarily want to do. Have you heard, Kevin? Have they come back at you with any reason of why you want to do it other than that guy does it?
And that's a great point. I'm always the guy, the jerk that sat in the back of the class. And I simply ask why, why do you do it this way? And if you don't have it's always been done that way. Well, that's not a reason, right? So, again, why are you dragging your foot? How does that make you throw strikes? What does that? Of course, no one comes back to say, well, not only do you have to drag it, but you have to drag it like it's in a miter box, straight as an arrow. So, no one ever comes back with the answer. Now, if you came back and said, well, we do it because, we've seen that it's blah, 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 blah. Oh, all right. Well, I see this. At least there would be dialogue. But what happened? Right. You're a Karen. You're this, you're that. Okay, fine. And that's why the injuries, that's why the baseball is not advancing like other sports. And and I know you don't think it's a sport, but like golf, where like golf has really taken to the science of movement. And these guys that are weighed, 27 pounds hitting the ball 5,000 yards, and it's insane. So, what's happening now is pretty much, one of the greatest tournaments ever is the Little League World Series, right? Mm-hmm. So Mike, I'll ask you as a parent, father, son, watching the game. The son is 8 or 9, right, to go into Little League, and dad wants to figure out, how do I help my kid hit better?
Right.
Where should they go? What should they like? How do you go through the weeds? Like, what do you like? What are what I'm saying? Like, what like basic information where, okay, this is how I teach Junior how to hit.
Right. So a couple of things to this. So number one, you want to find yourself a hitting instructor. Okay. Now, how do I do that? How do I find a hitting instructor? You would interview. I mean, you can find hitting instructors online. You could look up hitting instructors in my area, baseball training facilities in my area, etc. Then you want to interview them, and you want to ask some basic questions. You want to ask. You want to ask, what kind of swing do you teach? Right? Do you do you teach a big league swing? Do you teach kids to hit with their legs? So let's even reverse that. Let's say I'm a dad who's never played sports. I wouldn't even know to ask that question. Well, but you could ask. You would know to ask. Like what? You know what I'm saying? Like if I had to back it up and say, what's first question out of the box for someone who has no knowledge, what do you think that would be? I like the interview. Are you going to teach my kid to hit like a big league hitter? And I'll tell you, because you would be amazed, Kevin. Why do you ask that question? Well, that's what I was going to get to. Is you'd be amazed at how many hitting coaches out there will not teach a big league swing. Now, a lot of them just don't know how. They don't really know what it entails. A lot of them. But you know what they'll say? They'll say, they'll say, a lot of guys will teach, hands to the ball, bring your hands up, your back elbow down, bring the knob to the ball, etc. And again, we've talked about it, a bunch. If you're swinging a -13 bat and you're facing 40-mile-an-hour fastballs in Little League, you're going to be able to hit that with your arms and your hands. No problem. You'll make contact. And they'll tell you, say, we'll say, hey, a parent may say, hey, I see what you're showing my son. We went home after last lesson and we watched a bunch of big league swings, and these guys were doing it differently. They didn't have their hands up there. Their elbows were in a different place. And that's going to happen. Hands didn't seem to move. And they'll say, oh, well, look, those you don't want to do it like the big leagues. your kid's not strong enough to do it. Those guys are superior athletes and they can get away with that stuff. I've heard it a gazillion times.
All right, so let's stop it.
Times.
So when you say a big league swing, that would be what we talked about, the avatar of swinging, the Iron Byron of golf. Like that's
right.
So why would you teach anything but that?
You shouldn't. That should be the only thing taught.
People are doing that, and why?
Absolutely. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know why. And I can only speculate that a lot of people, they don't look at, you got to study hitting and swinging for a long time and apply it and experience it for a long time to really understand and to really be able to do it. I mean, again, it's hard to do when you have an object in your hand and you've got another object you're supposed to hit with that object, and to tell your arms to not do it and to make your legs and hips do it. It's not easy. It's not easy. And especially since, no 3-year-old goes, hey, Dad, I want to try baseball. And they go, sure, son. Don't swing anything until we find you a hitting coach first. No, they're going to take them out. They're going to just let them hit away. Right. So they start building habits right away. So you got to correct those. So the question as to why is they don't get it. They don't get it. And they go back to what they were taught, which is, well, hey, my high school coach told me, hands to the ball, knob to the ball. I've even seen Tony Gwynn in a video do it. He was even saying the wrong stuff. And then he would show his swing and did nothing of what he just advised people to do.
So let me ask you, so how much, we talked about, when someone first picks up a ball, they, wing it. How much is the 2-year-old or 3-year-old picking up a bat and naturally swinging
properly
to a major league swing? Like are there 5 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 1 out of 10? Like how much of the natural body's movement is involved in a major league swing?
I've seen one kid in my entire life, and this was 13, 14 years ago. Okay. It's before I had my own facility. I was working at another. This kid was 8 years old, and he had the most mechanically sound swing I've ever seen out of an 8-year-old. Wasn't perfect, but he did a lot of the things
just
properly.
This natural.
But I don't know if it's natural. This kid loved eat, sleep, baseball, right? So he was probably looking stuff up and try to emulate guys like we did when we were growing up, right? So we didn't have people teaching us this.
Oh,
but I would emulate, every swing I could.
Oh, how many swings could you do? And this is
many.
We can do a whole show about that's half the issue. These kids don't move. I mean,
and they don't watch baseball.
I could do the whole 1978 Yankees lineup for sure. Yeah.
Don't need to do it because they can do it right here, right on their own TV, right? And they can even put an avatar of themselves in that same lineup and make the swing however they want it, right? So it's different. But they don't watch baseball like we did. That's a part of it. And so you do really have to. Again, if your kid's serious about the sport and look, a lot of them are, and you see these groups, these Facebook groups, these dads are and moms are really into it. Hey, I see all the time. You're probably in some of the same groups. They'll post a picture of a kid's at bat and go, "Hey guys, any good tips?" Dude,
look, and there's I'll see there's 80 comments. I'm like, oh my god.
And you'll also see this. You'll say, "Any tips?" He's 8. He's got really great hand-eye coordination. He's got really great pop, great.
Pop, great. He's 8,
dude. And can we stop using the word great so much?
Elite, great.
Right. I mean, it's insane. So,
all right. So first question out of the box, we find a hitting instructor. We ask them, are you teaching the major swing? Right.
And if they ask you, since we're relaying this information, if they ask you, what do you mean by that? I would say when my kid swings, when you're finished with him, or your goal is to get him eventually to look like the swing of a big leaguer, i.e., minimal hands, really using the legs and the core, proper posture, that sort of stuff. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. That's why you don't want to try to bring it down to one thing. You want to ask if they teach the major league swing. And by the way, anybody worth there.
I think you left out a huge thing there because you just said a bunch of stuff that's important.
Yeah, but again, no,
but you have you're teaching the kids to use their body. Don't minimize that. That's huge. So core, legs. So if someone's not talking about that, then move on, right? I mean, you want to have and
here's the one thing you want to definitely run away from.
Plan of this is how I do it. You know what I mean?
Correct. Sorry to interrupt, but this is the one thing you really want to run away from. If they come back with, well, our hitting philosophy is, don't even let them get to is. Say thank you very much, and you move. There's nothing philosophical about it. There's no philosophy.
I like this. No,
Okay?
all right, go down that road. Let me, because I've heard that. So tell me, get on your soap
all the time, and you'll even hear what's well, our philosophy is what you're hitting for. No philosophy. No, it's not philosophical. And again, this is why the big league swing is the big league swing.
Socrates is not there.
No, Socrates is not there. No Socrates.
Yeah.
So
Socrates.
So no, I mean, and that's why I try to boil it down to the big league swing, because again, if you take we had it on last episode where we popped up load position from all the big leaguers from like a 40-year span. They all looked identical. If they were in silhouettes, you wouldn't be able to tell who was who. Now, if you had their stances, you'd be able to tell who was who, right? Sure. But load position where it starts to become mechanical. Okay. Yeah. And their swings, how they got to contact and how they got through contact, that would all be nearly identical, again, with small minor differences, but nearly identical. The goal, what they're trying to do is all the same. It's to use their legs and the core to generate bat speed and have their hands just guide the bat and keep it behind the ball, stay in the zone, stay in the contact area as long as possible. That's what a big league swing is. And so again, there's no philosophy to it, and everything that goes into a big league swing, there's reason behind it. And we've talked about a lot of it on this show, right? Why posture is important, why, that first motion, that early rotation is important, and it can't be your hands or your shoulders, etc. Sure. Right. It's like a basketball shot.
Besides having a ton of time on your hands, or the little beep that goes off when someone comments, why would you ever subject your child, post a video on Facebook of your child and ask the World Wide Web to critique it? Like why would you
because
wait.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? What's the purpose of that? Who does that help? And please stop doing that, parents. I know.
And you know what? It's like, I agree with you 100%. So let me just say that. Right. And I haven't come out and said that here because I don't want to blame the parents because they're trying to get better their kid.
Help. Right. They're
looking for help, but they're giving too much credit to people they don't know. Right. And that's the thing. It's like,
talk about that. I like that answer.
Well, look, anybody could be out there and I'll give you a perfect example. This is a good example. And I hope this is a good example. Just tonight, I'm on social media and I see that Yeti coolers, love Yeti, right? Got my Yeti mug right here. Okay. Love Yeti coolers.
Did you take a home equity loan for that?
70 to 80% off, Kevin.
Where?
Exactly. And so I go, there's no way this is real.
Someone's truck.
I go, there's no way this is real. So I go on the internet, I get off of the social media platform and I go on the internet. And of course it's a scam. Okay. Yeah. So look, anybody can out there call them, hey, the hitting lab, the hitting doctor, whatever it might be. Right. So, and there's people that just might even have pages on their own. But there's lots of people out there who, they either like to hear themselves talk, okay, or type, whatever. They think they know more than they do. Maybe they're a big fish in a small pond. Maybe there's some guy in a town league that everyone goes to, but doesn't really know that much. I'm trying to make up reasons why. I don't know. All I know is that there's lots of people out there online who will are waiting for you to ask that question so they can give you their professional opinion or their expert opinion. And it's so often wrong. And I'm not saying this to try to be, an arrogant ass. I mean, I see it. I stumble upon it. I'm on these boards all the time. And, I don't even get into it with them anymore because that's useless too. Because like you said, Kevin, they can't actually dialogue. They can't. No. I would love to share ideas. I'd love to, you and I share ideas. Guys on my staff
all the time, dude. That's the only way we're gonna advance anything is to, agree, disagree, find some commonality. All right. So dad contacts you.
Beware.
Yeah, get you on the phone. You say the major league swing. What do you do next? Do we get this kid in for like a free little?
A great question.
Free look, and I can talk about what I do. Like, so do you get this kid in for a free little screen, or what happens, or what is the best practice that the parents should be looking for to happen? I guess is probably better.
That's actually a really good question. So yeah, definitely get that. If the instructor comes back and goes, absolutely, we teach the big league swing. That's the only way to do it. That's what you want to hear, and so you go, okay, great. Can we connect with the lesson in a lesson? Now, some people will offer a free first lesson or evaluation. Mm-hmm. They're not bad. I mean, we do them as well. But we only do it to show look, this is where your son is now or daughter, and these are the sort of flaws. And, here's what we're going to work on. And by the way, and, I say it all the time, and this is what we want it to look like. And I might use some sort of avatar. And I'll always say again, as I'm instructing with them, don't take my word for this. Go home, watch a big league swing.
Do that. Yeah.
Right.
That's really good.
And they should, if they're confident what they do, they should have that same sort of, opinion, and shouldn't feel challenged. If you say, if you go back to them and go, hey, we went home and watched some videos and we saw that, whatever hitter, Otani was doing this, and, they should be able to explain what they're trying to do, or like say, hey, look, maybe that's a flaw in their swing, but here's why you want to do. And of course, we talk about all the time is they should be able to answer why. So here's what we're doing, and here's why we do it. And as much as, like I brought it to a nutshell is the big league swing, it shouldn't just be the answer of, well, that's what the big leaguers do. They should understand why big leaguers do that.
Sure.
And that's a big thing. And if you connect, because this is the other thing too, you have to be able to, your kid has to connect with that instructor.
Right.
It's really important.
That's a key one. That's a key one. Okay.
Yeah. So go and see if they connect is the short answer.
Go and see if they connect. And then, so I know you've talked a lot about, so, let's just say we've got our 9-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
What is a proper package? Not price is negotiable, but
I know what you mean.
Like
a program.
What's the program? What's a proper program to get this kid to actually make changes that when he's, if it's happening now, we'll just say it's happening now, that come, March or April, that he gets on that field as a 10-year-old little leaguer and can put the ball in play.
That's a great question too. And so this is a kind of a tough one, to be honest with you, because 9 years old, like they should be doing, they should be playing other sports. They should be doing other things.
I mean, if you had give me a couple routes.
In a perfect world, you'd be able to see that kid twice a week, or maybe it's like
twice a week. Okay.
Well, I backed up a little bit, so I think that maybe it's, couple times a week in the fall, and then December through January.
Sports. Yeah, he wants it. This is his only sport that he plays.
Twice a week. Twice a week. Once a week is okay.
Yeah. Now, how long would a good lesson be? Half hour, 45 minutes,
hour? Half hour. Here's why. So,
folks.
All right. So the first couple lessons might be 45 minutes, maybe to an hour, and that's because maybe we're doing a lot of talking, a lot of demonstrating. Sure. Once the kid's into the lessons where it's fully active lessons and you're going from tee to front toss and then eventually even overhand, you can actually fatigue yourself into poor mechanics or hit yourself into poor mechanics.
Right.
In no world as a hitter actually taking 70 swings in a row. Right. No. So you don't want to be swinging for an hour.
You said one time like 10. Did you say 10? Do I remember that number?
That was if a kid's doing work off a tee on their own. It should be 10 swings in a break, because again, they start all of a sudden just looking at the ball and swinging rather than thinking about how their body moves. But along the same vein is just that, like, a half hour is generally a good time, especially for 9-year-old. I would even say that up to like 15-year-olds, I stay within a half hour, because it's still a lot of swings, and you want to make sure that and look, especially at that age, 9 and through teens, they're going to fatigue here first. Right. They're going to fatigue mentally before they fatigue physically, right? So keep it to a half hour.
All right. So here's my next question.
All right. Love it.
Between lessons, are you giving homework? Should a proper instructor give homework, things to work on? If yes, 1 thing, 5 things, 10 things, what do we got?
If it's hitting, okay. Yep. If it's pitching, absolutely. If it's hitting, it depends. Yeah. I mean, because do they have a full understanding of what you're working on? If you've been working on something with them, okay, let's say it's bottom hand path. Okay. And we're working on keeping the elbow down and keeping the palm down and not turning the wrist early. Right.
Yep.
If they have a full grasp what that means and they have a tee at home where they can work on that, great. But if they don't have a full grasp of that, you don't want them going home doing it incorrectly and undoing what you just worked on. So, is it good? And look, I always say this, I hesitate to answer these questions like that are based around the homework thing, is because you never want to discourage hard work. You never want to discourage work ethic, but when it comes to hitting, that work ethic can kind of bite you in the backside. Now, I will say that in terms of results, your first year, especially a young kid, 9, 10 years old, 1 year, when I say 1 year, one off season. So say like November through March, they'll see really significant progress, And then that second year, depending, whether you increase the training on, let's say you kind of just stay where you were, you won't see as big of an increase, but you'll see some. And then that third year is like, they're going to be amazing. So also be ready to play the long game when it comes to this. Right. And I think when it comes to deciding on an instructor, don't settle, make sure it's someone that you think you're willing to play the long game with.
All right. Awesome. So to sum up, we want to teach junior how to hit. We go on and we interview, find an instructor who teaches the major league swing, who brings you in for some sort of meet and greet discovery type, and then has a curriculum of, some sort of plan to get your kid better.
Yes, they have to be able to point out where you're going wrong, where your flaws are. Yep. Okay. They have to tell you why those are flaws. They have to show you what it should look like.
Yep. And
then they give you a plan on how you're going to fix that. Now, of course, the plan depends on a lot of things. Again, the frequency, not just the frequency, but the focus. I'm a huge fan of small group instruction for this reason. To getting a 9-10-year-old kid, especially knowing they're going to be there every week or twice a week, they're not always going to bring their A focus game to their lessons. Okay. And sometimes, especially in the beginning, you might have to spend the first 15 minutes of the half-hour lesson just getting back to where you ended off last lesson. Okay. Yep. Where small group instruction improves upon that is they want to be the one getting the attaboy from the coach. So if you got 3 kids there, they tend to focus more. They tend to stay more locked in because they don't want to be the one that's being corrected more than the other guys. So and you do have more breaks in between swings, swings, which is more conducive to real baseball, like we talked about. It's more cost beneficial for everybody.
All right, cool. So, folks, that's how we try to find hitting.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah. So I guess I'll handle the pitching or the pitching aspect of it. Very, very similar. Obviously, the biggest thing for me is you should never look at where someone played. That means absolutely nothing. Zero. Not less than zero. Much less than zero. Like you said, Mike. Like, what do you say when a coach like? You have a great line. What is that? I don't even want to talk about when someone asks, where'd you play? You come back with this. This is like the best line ever.
It was when I used to manage booking lessons at another facility before mine. And even at mine, I would put kids with certain instructors and I would often get the question of, okay, that's great. We'll be there. By the way, where did he play, the instructor? And I'll say, I'll tell you where he played. But you're asking the wrong question. You should be asking where his players are playing, his students are playing. And that's what's important.
That's fantastic. That's right there. That's it. That's gold, Jerry.
Yep.
So, when we talk about, pitching, it is obviously a movement, a sport that can cause injury. And those injuries are through the roof. So I think the parents need to find someone who has sound mechanics built on science. I would look at, where they went to school, what they do. And we talked about this in a previous show. There are major league teams who have these, rehab pitching instructor that have a liberal arts degree.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with the liberal arts degree, but rehab and liberal arts don't match. Okay.
Right.
So, the first and foremost, when we talk about pitching instruction is getting the child to be healthy. And that would be the first question I would ask. And this is a question, is anyone in your stable, what's your injury rate? That's a legitimate question to ask. What is your, like I just said before the beginning of the show, this collage of pitchers who drag their toe, 70% of them have Tommy John surgery. Not a good collage, right? So you would definitely ask, what is your success rate? And so
now, what's the question, Kevin, that people typically ask instead of that? Because I know what it is.
Go ahead, give it to me.
It's how hard do your guys throw?
How hard they throw.
That's all they care about. How, are you getting your guys to 90? That's,
Right. So yeah, we are in this velocity. And what I say to that is always look at, You can't get a college scholarship at 12, but you can certainly ruin your chances of a college scholarship at 12.
That's a great point. That's
So when people ask me, I just watched again my Yankees. I watched Nestor Cortez, who didn't break 90 tonight, or maybe 91, mow down the lineup, who threw pitches from 74 miles an hour to 91 in all four corners of the plate. The best of the best of the best still are in the Hall of Fame, had the best control. Yes, there are people who threw very hard. Clemens threw not in the Hall of Fame, but your Tom Glavine, your Greg Maddux couldn't break glass. It's about control. But when you're talking about an adolescent kid, you want them to be safe. Any lessons should have some sort of corresponding arm care or exercises to keep the arm healthy that are taught at the lesson, during the lesson, and certainly for homework. Okay, there has to be arm care, and arm care doesn't mean ice on my elbow and a ace bandage. There should be specific exercises, and of course, you want to ask the provider why are we doing these, what's the purpose, and if they don't have a purpose, or they can't answer why, you turn and you run very fast.
Right.
But like you, Mike, I bring the kid in with the parent always, and talk both to the kid and the parent what their goals are, what they want to get out of this, and I bring my philosophy. I call it discovery visit. I do the same thing for physical therapy. Come in, do a little evaluation. There should be an evaluation. We're talking about pitching, and that shouldn't have nothing to do with the radar gun. Zero.
Right.
There should be checkpoints. What are they, position one? What are they, position two? You need to have a pitching avatar. So you need to have, these are my 4 or 5 things, and this is again why. So although there's not a published avatar, I have my own at what I like to see at this position, that position, this position, and then of course the goal, which my goal is, for those who don't know, is if you're from 60 feet, that means from 45 feet, and if you're from what's Little League, like 40 feet, then about 25 feet, that you could throw blindfolded strikes. That's right, blindfolded. People who are blind can get around town, go to the bank, do all that kind of stuff. So if you have repeatable mechanics that you can feel, you don't need vision. So and obviously with your eyes open, I like to have 2 to 3 pitches in all 4 corners of the plate.
So what do you say to Kevin? Because I'm sure you get it. Even with all that, I'm sure it comes up from parents saying, well, is this going to help him throw harder? What do you say to that question?
Yep. So it's a great question. So I say 100 miles an hour is a God-given gift. Just like leading from the foul line, double pumping and dunking a basketball in a dunk contest is God-given. Okay. I'm going to be able to increase your velocity, but I'm going to do that by getting all of your movements, all of your muscles, everything working precisely like they're intended to, on the same page at the same time, giving you everything that you have to deliver force through that baseball. And at the end of the day, that's 71 miles an hour, then it's 71 miles an hour. If it's 92 miles an hour, it's 92 miles an hour. But what I will guarantee is that every pitch that you throw, you will have less and less and less and less of a chance of injury, because I want to keep you healthy.
That's a great answer. That's a great goal. And therein lies too the difference, right? God-given is the difference between talent and skill, and that's it. And it's the same should come from hitting too. It's how good of a hitter are you going to be? Well, that depends on what you put in and who you're with. The success, in my opinion, should be a byproduct. Success should be a byproduct of hard work and proper training, right? And you're right. And so what you see, Kevin, out there with the velocity is you see all the, to go back to social media, people guaranteed you'll be throwing 92 or guaranteed to add 12 miles an hour within 3 days. That's out there, folks.
I know.
That's out there by someone that if you look them up, you go, wow, this guy looks reputable.
Right.
Okay. Why wouldn't hold on? If I'm Aroldis Chapman, why am I not going there? Go shoot! I want to throw 117.
Yeah, why not? Right. So like
at bananas.
So on that point, okay, and this is very important. When you're doing movements, functional movements, it should have some component of pitching. Okay, what I mean by that is, as far as I know, you do not run from center field towards home plate, throw a ball as hard as you can, fall over into some sort of forward roll, and that's been called a pull down. Okay, that's insane. We don't do things like that. So any exercise or drill that you should have some functional component of the pitching movement. Squats, lunges, whatever that. Those, I mean, you see these crazy things on the internet of people, doing these crazy things that isn't part of the mechanics of pitching, right? So if I'm a boxer, I'm not going to train to box by playing golf, right? It has to have some component. And the key is that anything that we do with the arm, acceleration should happen with Sir Isaac Newton, meaning downhill, not against Sir Isaac Newton. So if we have a heavy ball, which that's a whole nother show, anything, all acceleratory movements of the arm should be last in the kinetic sequence and downhill, which means with gravity, not against. Anything that's against gravity, even shoulder presses that we're doing, has to be precise, and the why needs to be a 7-page term paper as to why we're doing that. We want to make sure, because the arm is designed to work downhill and to decelerate the rotator cuff works deceleratory to slow the arm down. It has to be downhill. So
good stuff.
That's it.
Well, I got one more thing for you.
All right, what we got?
One more, and I know we're coming up on time here, but
dude, we're a hurricane. The world's ending.
That's a good point.
People might be listening. Oh, well, actually, if they lost power, they couldn't listen to us, right?
With a phone signal, they probably could.
If they have good signal, yeah. Charge your cell phones.
So the foot drag. This all started with the foot drag. Okay.
Yes.
And I look at it and I think of now. I'm not going to be honest with you.
It actually started with a comment that said, "Go
elite
fast."
mechanics."
Right, elite mechanics, but like go fast, like go forward fast. Well, how do I go forward when I'm dragging my toe?
Right,
that's where it started.
Right, and I think it's all sorts of examples. Like someone stealing a base and dragging their back foot as they take their step to second base. I think of a car, right? Let's call it a truck. Right. I mean, even if they're towing only a bike rack behind them, okay, that's still more resistance than if they disconnected that bike rack. So it makes total sense to me. What sort of reception do you get when you're working with a player and they see, because hitting is a lot different than pitching, a lot different, right? So, and I think it's important to touch on this for everybody listening up there, is that I always say, when it comes to hitting, look at every big leaguer, do what they're doing. Right. Pitching, not the same. That's not
I
true.
Get that all the time.
Right. And even fielding. Yeah.
Oh man. Yep.
So that might also, because even fielding, right? Because we talk about, you have fielders who still pull the ball in and, they do a lot of things that you don't necessarily want to do. Anyway, another story for another time. But yeah, with pitching, that's got to be hard, right? Because, well, I know it's not that hard for me, because I say, look at the injury rates, right? And we keep, but how do you respond when you get that question?
That's a great question. I get it all the time. Who do I look at? And I'll say, like, look, he's so-and-so is really good at this point. I compare it to I basically have 4 checkpoints. Start off nice and tall, leg up, which I call the crane, back out the load, and then the finish. So he's good here, he's good here, he's good here. And then I'll just bring him through it. Like, look, here is Mike Frary in this position, and I'll bring them there. And okay, Mike's arm is back here. Now resist me, and boom, they have no strength. I show them. That's the key. Right. I show them, look, this position is bad because of here. This position is good because of here. You have to show them, because you guys, oh yeah, like, you've seen that tip I do, where you have all the kids come in. How much do you squat? Everyone squats, and I push them over, and I show them, let's get into the batter's box and move our butt back first, and then our knees, and they're like 10 times as strong. You have to show them. So give them the why, show it to them, and then that proves it right then and there. And then, of course, the backup is, look, no one's doing it right, or Dr. James Andrews would be out of business. We never lose anyone to the disabled list, right? It's like smoking. We're all doing it. It's bad. We know it's bad, but no one's fixing it. I'm trying to fix it.
Good stuff, buddy. Well, I think if anything that we take away from this is, stay away from the internet when it comes to tips on how to play baseball or how you want how your kid to play baseball. Just stay away.
And when you see, and definitely when someone is challenged, there's nothing wrong with challenging people in a professional way. And open dialogue is good. But when there's, they call you names, they put memes up there, that's someone you just turn and run. Like, I don't want to hear, well, we've done it that way for 1,000 years. It's not working, people. It's not, especially in the pitching realm. It's just not working. People go down every day. With Tommy John in the major leagues, it's countless for younger generation.
And by the way, the answer of we've been doing this way 1,000 years. My reply would often be, that's one of your problems.
Right.
We have a lot more information and technology and science now. And again, guys, I look at Ted Williams. The fact that he figured so much of this out.
Yeah.
Back before high-speed cameras and all this other is remarkable without like a kinesiological degree. Blows me away. So there were people who are really paying attention, but it's the information is out there now. The problem is, everybody, is that we're in the era of free information, and there's, for every good piece of information, there's 9 or 10 pieces of bad information.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have the experience or the knowledge to know the difference, it could be dangerous and dangerous literally in terms of pitching mechanics, as Kevin was talking about, is you don't want your kid getting hurt, of course, or you getting hurt if you're looking. And in terms of hurting you in terms of success, if it's hitting, fielding, other disciplines of the sport. So try to find somebody, interview them, reach out to us. So we could even, because I know not everyone's local, or we could help, match with somebody. We could do stuff through the thing and through video, whatever. So anyway.
Yeah. So that's what I was so again, thanks for listening. We do this show, we take a hard line sometimes, but we do this show to help people, to give people information to keep you healthy and performing. That is our kind of goal in life. You can always get a hold of the show at info@proveitlive.com. You can email us, you can contact us, we can point you in the right direction, we can get online with you. We like to help. That's what we're all about here. And that's it.
All right. And we'll see you next week. I'm still here. One more background like this. I might change it up.
I might have another background like this, but I think I have. Wait, hold on. How about that? I got crickets, or I think.
Yeah, it was crickets.
Wait, I say. No, we don't want that. Hey, there we go. Thank you.